It's great to see the in-person ReelOzInd event happening this year in a few weeks' time at ACMI. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to Jemma Purdey all about ReelOzInd. Jemma, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you for having me, Peter. It's so great to see you too, because yeah, as you say, it's been a few years.
It has. First of all, for audiences who may not be aware, let's talk about what ReelOzInd is all about.
Right. Well, as you know, it's a pretty unique film festival, short film festival for Australian and Indonesian filmmakers. This year, we're going to be having our 7th festival. So we started back in 2016. And it's an open competition. We invite submissions for a variety of genres, as well as we have young filmmakers. The idea behind it was to find a platform where Australians and Indonesians can share their stories together, and in this case, visual stories, because we think that there's quite a gap there when you think about what we know about each other. There's very little kind of film content or even television content still that we share with each other, which is different from other Asian cultures, right? Where we have, this great love for Korean cinema now, which is booming internationally, for anime from Japan, that kind of penetration into our general normal habits as viewers. But there's still a gap, I think, in terms of what's going on in Indonesia for Australians, and the same too for Indonesians, who don't really see a lot of what, the great stuff that we make here.
How interesting. Was there a theme attached to submissions for this year?
Yeah, so our theme this year, because every year we like to have a theme to kind of keep things cohesive and fresh. This year, our theme is voice. The Indonesian word is suara. And this is really interesting, it comes to doing a bilingual festival, which we are, is the challenge to find words that you can translate with exact meanings. In Indonesian, suara is a much richer has a much richer meaning than just simply voice. It can also mean noise. It can also mean it's the word that's used for your vote in an election. So it's quite interesting and broad, but we landed on the English of voice because I guess I was thinking, coming out of the pandemic, and not being able to really communicate in a way that was beyond our what we're doing right now, our screens, it kind of limited our opportunities to have ourselves heard, to have our stories heard. And so it was a little bit of that, but it was also about, let's make a bit of noise and enjoy ourselves again as well.
Okay. Very good. Tell me about the number of submissions you received, considering the sort of hiatus that's been for the last few years, and obviously a range of different approaches that filmmakers have used.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Peter. We saw during the pandemic was yes. So in the last few years, we've definitely seen a change in how people were able to make their films, and particularly around, I think, the 2020, 21 period, we saw people having to, kind of alter their approaches. There was, less opportunity to go out into the field, etc. And so more was being done innovatively, online. But this year, I think it's just back to normal. So most of the films that we will have in the festival this year have been produced in the last 12 months. So, there were less restrictions on mobility and that kind of thing. So that seems to have been fine. In terms of volume of submissions, I haven't ever really seen a drop off or a change in the number that we've had across that time. So that's a really nice, consistent thing that we can talk about.
Okay, great. And you also have a judging panel that looks at all the submissions to make determinations in various categories.
Exactly, because it's a competition. And as I said, it's open. We also have great prizes, so that's a good incentive. And every year we have a jury of 8 people who are filmmakers themselves or they're critics. Some of them are academics who work on film. And we have 4 from Australia and 4 from Indonesia. Some of the exciting people that we have on our jury this year include the one that your Australian audiences would definitely know, Susan Carland, who is an academic at Monash University, but is a broadcaster and is on television and is quite well-known figure. Also a filmmaker named Alex von Hoffman for the Australians, and Andrew Mason is a member of our jury and has been a real fixture on our jury since the beginning. Andrew is a producer of blockbuster films like The Matrix, so we're really honored to have him there. And for Indonesia, I mean, there's so many exciting young filmmakers doing excellent work, and this year we're really pleased to have a filmmaker called Yosep Anggi Nun, who is back again with us, and he has produced several feature films which have had success at international festivals. And other than that, we have a documentary filmmaker called Febriana Ferdos. But yeah, so many, and it's just a really enjoyable thing to engage with all these wonderful people from Indonesia and Australia, and to kind of build networks, Peter, that haven't really been established, I think, between the Australian and Indonesian film industries.
Okay, we'll talk about the event in Melbourne at ACMI in a moment, but of course you have this package of films that are award-winning films and so on screened across Australia, is it, and Indonesia?
Yeah, so we've got this really cool festival model, which, you know, for anyone who wants, you know, is thinking of running a festival and doesn't have a large budget, I would recommend it. So it's basically, it's a pop-up festival model, which we've been running successfully since 2016, where we kind of do a shout out to people across Indonesia and Australia, and we say, here's a package of excellent films that we'd love to share with you, and for you to kind of share with whomever, you know, your network is or your community, and your reach lots and varied audiences. So that's what we do when we run that from our premiere on the 22nd of October until the end of the year. So there's lots of time for people to get around it. But of course, this is, you know, with the sign of the times, Peter, we've also made the decision to keep our festival online this year as well. So we're doing both. We're doing that hybrid. So in 2020 and 21, obviously, we were only online. And it was great, though, because we reached audiences around the world, as well as, you know, our target kind of communities. And so we're keeping that going as well.
Excellent stuff. And
but nothing beats being together, right?
Yes.
To watch the films, yeah. So we
Okay.
can't wait to do it again.
It is, and of course the package will be screened in Indonesia as well. Online is what you're saying, though.
No. So we will also have our pop-up festivals going around in Indonesia. Absolutely, yes. That's starting up, same as here. So on the 22nd of October, our premieres will happen at ACMI in Melbourne, and also in Malang, which is in East Java, where we're partnering with some universities there to host that event. So yeah, and then we're off, and you know, it's like it's an organic thing. It just kind of runs itself, and I'm always excited to see where it takes us.
Okay, excellent stuff. Okay, so the big event is in Melbourne at ACMI on the 22nd of October from 6 p.m. Tell me about who will be there, and I must declare an interest because I've been asked again to host the Q&A.
Yay! Of course, you will have been asked. Yes, thank you for accepting again. Yeah, it's so great to be back at ACMI and Federation Square too, Peter, because you might recall, you know, with ACMI under reconstruction renovation for a few years there prior to the pandemic, we were out at Treasury. So
Yeah.
It's so nice to be back in the new surrounds of renovated Fed Square ACMI. And well, you'll be there. We're also going to have a couple of members of our jury along, but, you know, I'm excited about our award winners who will be present. Some of them have to come from interstate to join us, but hopefully, all being well, that happens. And yeah, our community here in Melbourne, who's always really supportive of the festival. I'm just excited to share again on, a big screen, these fabulous stories that, Australians and Indonesians are producing, and to do it in this, unique way where we're kind of side by side. And what happens with our theme is that so many kind of intersections and storylines, resonate across Australia and Indonesia, across both countries. And it's always nice to see that, and how that kind of, brings us together through that process.
Yes, yes, and I saw that there, I think 10 films will be screened as part of the compilation of award winners on the 22nd.
Exactly. So people can expect to see, 10 award-winning films, so picked by our jury, our eminent jury. And, this includes documentary, animation, includes fiction film, and films made by young people aged 13 to 18 years, but all really high quality. And as I say, kind of united around this theme of voice, or swara, and how they interpret that. But yeah, it's always really great. I think audiences always walk out of a ReelOzInd screening, having kind of been surprised, having come away with, learning something new, having a different perspective on things, but also kind of this, as I mentioned, this feeling of community and, sameness, which is really what it's about, because, we're all kind of humans and we all feel and experience the same things.
Oh, terrific. What a great opportunity to see these Australian and Indonesian productions, which would not be able to be seen probably in any other way apart from at ReelOzInd. So that's great.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's we're supporting emerging filmmakers. Essentially, that's what we do. And some of our filmmakers, though, are much more accomplished. As you'll see, it doesn't mean that this is a festival that is in any way of lesser quality, because there really are professional filmmakers involved here. But I guess that's where you get your start in short film, and that's how you kind of show what you can do. And many of our filmmakers from ReelOzInd have gone on to fabulous things. And we just love that network that we've created, and we will continue to build on going into the future.
Excellent stuff. Now let's talk about how people can go and see this event, which is free, isn't it?
Yes, 100% free. So yeah, it's all free. So all they need to do is get on the ACMI website and look up ReelOzInd, 22nd of October, and book your tickets. It's that simple. And we just, the more the merrier. We'd love to see everyone there.
Excellent stuff. And tell me, Jemma, while you're there, how has the Indonesian film industry overall recovered, if it has, after the COVID pandemic? Or I suppose it's not completely over, but at least in the current situation?
Yeah, I mean, cinemas there were closed for a very long time. So that was a real concern. And, the thing was, in Indonesia, restrictions were not uniform across the country. Like here in Australia, there was some lockdown and some not. And in general, not as severe in terms of restrictions. So when you think about film production, was able to continue more or less with particular protocols there. So that seemed to have not really been too badly disrupted. But when it came to getting audiences into cinemas, yes, that did take a while. So that was a glitch. But on the other hand, Peter, Netflix in Asia is booming. And, there is more and more demand for content from across the region, and including Indonesia. So you've seen quite a lot of leading filmmakers of, big blockbuster cinema releases now working on Netflix productions as well. So I think on the whole, yeah, it's been quite a healthy progression for Indonesian cinema. Also, we've seen Indonesian films continue to receive awards at international festivals, where they've, often been produced in collaboration with a lot of international partners. So that whole kind of process of the internationalization of Indonesian film is really interesting to see. Interestingly, as with, a lot of these things, though, those films, are they commercialized? Are they going to be the ones that people go to the cinema to see in Indonesia? It's not always the case. But, that's the same here. So, you know, it's I think that, you know, there's a lot going on. That's kind of part of the reason that we want people to, you know, maybe dip in to ReelOzInd to kind of see what is out there in terms of the Indonesian kind of, you know, capacity for filmmaking. And then that might encourage them to look more broadly at, you know, where they might be able to see more Indonesian content. Netflix is one place which is opening up a space for more engagement. Because as you know, the film festivals here in Australia, you know, they're limited in what they can include. And over the years, unfortunately, Indonesian cinema has not been very prominent at all. So unlike some of the, you know, as I mentioned, Korean cinema, it's not received the same kind of support. That's possibly because of the types of films that Indonesia's been making. But I think that that's changed, that there's, you know, a new generation who are, as I say, like really producing films that resonate internationally. So hopefully we see that begin to shift a little bit more too, for a broader kind of really, you know, we might call it high-end film audience around those festivals. But yeah, for those who are intimidated by that, don't worry. ReelOzInd is like a nice little snapshot, short film, kind of almost like not sound bites, but little taster that people can dip into and see what's going on. And the cool thing is that you also get to discover some awesome Australian local talent too.
Absolutely. And we should mention that the films in Indonesian are subtitled, of course.
Yes.
And I think the films in English are subtitled in Indonesian.
Yeah, we're 100% bilingual, Peter.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty unique, and it poses a lot of challenges for our post-production folks because sometimes you have both languages running at the same time. But again, it's kind of cool because, as I say, Australians don't get to hear Indonesian that often. It's not a language they would be necessarily very familiar with. So yeah, that's a cool thing. And then obviously in Indonesia, you know, they're much more familiar with having to read subtitles, so it's not a problem for them. And yeah, but you know, for all of our, you know, proximity to Indonesia and our closeness as neighbors, to see that, you know, the lack of cinema, TV, even content between our two countries, yeah, continues to surprise. But yeah, we're trying to kind of bridge that a little.
Yes, absolutely, because there should be much stronger connections between Australia and Indonesia culturally, film-wise, and so on. I mean, we do have an Indonesian film festival that runs in Melbourne each year, but that's also very limited, I suppose, in the way it's run and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's only Melbourne, isn't it? So
Yes.
you know, that's the other thing. Yeah, that's always a limit on film festivals. And in Indonesia, the Australian government run a similar kind of program where they have Australian films, and that shows in a few different cities across Indonesia, which is great. But yeah, again, you know, you can't reach a very broad or, you know, audience that way either. So you know, as we know, internet you know, the internet's brilliant, and you know, part of the reason that we are staying online, I guess, and in fact we've been online since the beginning, but just in a slightly different format, is that, well, Indonesia's got excellent internet coverage, and they're really good at taking up new technologies and all of that kind of stuff. So we know that, you know, we can potentially reach a huge audience by using that. So we'll be on YouTube.
Very good. And it was great to see an Indonesian film at the Melbourne International Film Festival this year, Uni. I don't know if you saw it. A very interesting.
You know what? I missed it, but I am. Yeah, but just on the down low, I'm working with some people, and we're going to bring it to Melbourne again. So excellent. I will get to see it eventually. Yeah. So I'll let you know. There's a little plan for later this year to screen Uni again, because the director, Camilla Andini,
yes,
she's brilliant. She's had the Seen and Unseen film, which was also in the film festival,
yes,
in Melbourne, and was on our jury. I think 2 years ago, Camilla was on our jury for ReelOzInd. So yeah, close to our hearts. But did you see Uni?
Yes, I did, and I've spoken to Camilla previously with the Seen and Unseen. So yes, a really important filmmaker in Indonesia, and I really like Uni because of the messages it was giving us about contemporary Indonesian culture and religion and attitudes to women in particular.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. You know, that's kind of the motive for ReelOzInd very much too, is that Australians may have a particular view of Indonesia and Indonesians of Australia, which can be decades old. You know what I mean? It's not up to date. And it's kind of very, you know, maybe a tourist kind of package idea of their culture. But, you know, as a film like Uni demonstrates, it's, you know, highly contemporary, complex, and modern in every sense. And so, yeah, that's part of the reason why every year, like, it's important to continue to like show new content and, you know, demonstrate, you know, the capacity for Indonesians and, you know, for us to see how they live their lives, really, because at the end of the day, that's something that we don't understand a great deal about. So yeah, and as you know, Camilla's dad is a very famous filmmaker, Garin Nugroho. So
yes,
I think that she represents what I was saying earlier about, you know, the kind of legacy of his generation now being transferred to Camilla's generation, and this whole kind of opening up to the, you know, the internationalization of the industry, and people being interested in funding their films, you know, from Europe in particular, that there's a lot of interest. So I feel like Australia too need to get on board a little bit to do more of that co-production. That would be nice.
I absolutely agree with that. I think there should be more co-productions. And just the last question, Gemma, I love asking everyone, leaving aside ReelOzInd and everything we've talked about, have you seen anything else of late, streaming, cinemas, whatever, that has impressed you?
Yeah. Oh man, you always ask this question, and I'm drawing a blank, Peter, because I mean I have been in the cinema in the last 6 months, but it hasn't been as frequent as I would like. And I know I've seen something that I could tell you about, but it's probably an old one. Oh my goodness, and you're gonna have to help me. Oh, I'm gonna blank on you though. But I guess I would just say that I'm watching, like, you know, I'm streaming things, aren't we? You know, but there's some really great stuff on SBS and ABC. That's a kind of where it's a bit of my go-to now. I feel like, and I, you know, I do actually feel like Netflix and some of, you know, those providers are overdoing it in terms of they're laying it on thin. Like, there's a lot of content, but it's not necessarily fabulous. And so, yeah, I do find myself not finishing things. Do you do that too?
No, as a critic, I
You always go
suppose
to the end?
I see everything to the end, no matter how bad it is.
That's so good. I mean, no, I think I've got a little fatigue in that way. But yeah, so I have to declare that I've gone blank, and I can't tell you the last thing I saw in the cinema, but I've been back and I've loved it.
Yep.
And you know, that's the important thing. Sometimes it's more about the experience than the film itself for me. So yeah.
Sure. No, that's perfectly fine. Well, the place to be will be ACMI at 6 p.m. on Saturday, the 22nd of October, for ReelOzInd, for the 10 short films that will be screening, and then the discussion afterwards. And we've been speaking to Jemma Purdey all about it. Gemma, thanks so much.
Thank you, Peter. As always, thank you. And see you on the 22nd.
I'll be there. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.